My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 31. I run digital campaigns for Fortune 500 brands, and I used to think I was good at choosing men. I found out on a Tuesday. There was nothing suspicious about the day itself, just invoices, emails, a reheated burrito eaten in silence at my desk. Then a notification buzzed on my phone, tagged in a photo. It wasn't from anyone I followed. A boutique hotel in Sonoma, the kind with infinity pools and orchids in every hallway, had posted a photo in their guest spotlight series. And there they were, Ethan and her. Tasha, again. They weren't kissing, not touching, but they didn't have to be. The caption read, "Celebrating love this weekend? Why not do it in style like our guests Ethan and Tasha, enjoying their anniversary in our honeymoon suite?" Our suite. The same one Ethan took me to for our 5-year anniversary last summer. The same one where he poured champagne into the bathtub and told me sloppily that he couldn't believe we'd made it through so much. The same one where I'd left a note in the drawer for myself. Remember this. Remember the quiet. I remembered. Now it was someone else's memory. And I wasn't even the ghost. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry, not crying, just hollow, like I'd slipped out of my own skin. Like the woman in that bed was a character in a movie I'd already walked out of. We weren't officially broken up. That was the worst part. We were on a break, one of those bullshit phrases people use when they want all the distance without the guilt. Ethan said he needed space, needed time to think. Work was stressful. He wasn't sure if he was ready for marriage. And like a fool, I gave it to him. Time, space, grace. He filled it with her, so I filled my lungs with air and reminded myself that I was not the kind of woman who falls apart quietly. I had dignity. I had money in the bank. I had just enough rage curdling under my ribs to turn it into something elegant. That night, I made a call. The front desk at the hotel picked up on the second ring. "I'd like to book a room," I said. "Same weekend, same suite." They hesitated. "Ma'am, that suite is already taken." I smiled. "I'm aware," I said. "Charge double, and tell the couple in it their anniversary experience just got a lot more memorable." The concierge paused. "Would you like to add anything else to the reservation?" "Yes," I said. "Room service, full menu, every hour, until they check out." The hotel called me back 2 hours later. "Miss Bennett?" The concierge began, voice cautious. "We wanted to confirm the details on your upgraded reservation." They were nervous, probably not used to someone dropping $6,000 on a weekend suite out of pure spite. I confirmed every line item with a calm voice and a cold heart. The same room. Same view, same champagne package. Add-ons included a wake-up call at 6 a.m., a fruit basket every 3 hours, and a harpist scheduled to arrive outside their door for a private recital at noon sharp. I signed the credit card authorization with a flourish. Petty? Absolutely. But not loud, not cruel, just calculated. Because when someone drags you through the mud and tries to call it rain, you don't scream. You remind them who you are. Quietly, elegantly, and in style. Camille called while I was reviewing the hotel menu for further enhancements. "Tell me you're not actually doing it," she said. I didn't say a word. "Oh my God, Claire, you are." She wasn't mad, just stunned. Then, laughter. "This is either the most deranged or most iconic thing you've ever done." "Both can be true," I said. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even shaking anymore. Just steady, focused, the kind of calm that only comes when you've been humiliated and have moved past the hurt and into the hunger. This wasn't about Tasha. It wasn't even about Ethan anymore. It was about reclaiming something. That hotel wasn't just a building. It was mine. My memories, my softness, my time. And now it was going to be theirs too. But not in the way they planned. Later that night, I got a call from the front desk. "There's been some confusion," the manager said. "Your name is still associated with this particular suite from previous stays. The guest, Mr. Harris, has been asking questions." "Did you tell him anything?" I asked. "No, ma'am. We simply said the suite was being serviced. He seemed annoyed." "Let him be," I said. "It'll make the surprise more enjoyable." I imagined his face the moment the doorbell rang and a waiter wheeled in 5 plates of steaming entrees. Again, and again, and again. By the time the harpist arrived, I wanted Tasha to be questioning every choice she'd ever made. But the best part? They wouldn't even know it was me. Not at first. That would come later. For now, I just wanted to watch it unfold. One tray, one knock, one awkward explanation at a time. I didn't get out of bed until 10 that morning. Not because I was exhausted, but because I wanted to imagine what kind of night they'd had. Room service, every hour on the hour. Trays of untouched lamb, bowls of melting gelato, breakfast platters showing up long after midnight. I knew the hotel's kitchen well. They never missed an order, never asked questions. Just knock, deliver, and smile. By now, the suite would smell like a buffet line at a wedding reception no one wanted to attend. And then came the harpist. She arrived at 11:45 a.m. I got the notification from the hotel's automated system confirming her early arrival and setup. She'd been instructed to perform in the hallway outside the honeymoon suite. 3 pieces, 1 classical, 1 romantic, and 1 upbeat. I'd chosen the songs myself. Debussy's Claire de Lune to start. Then, At Last by Etta James, and for the finale, Single Ladies by Beyoncé. I wasn't subtle, but I was clever. At 12:05 p.m., the concierge called again. "Miss Bennett," the man began, voice strained. "There's a bit of a situation." "Go on." "The guest in the honeymoon suite has called down multiple times requesting clarification. He seems to believe this is all a mistake. He's upset." I could almost see Ethan's face in my mind. Flushed, defensive, trying to sound composed but failing. Tasha probably still in a robe, mascara smudged, wondering if she should be offended or amused. "Tell him we apologize for the inconvenience," I said, "and that today's performance is complimentary." A pause. "Would you like us to stop the harpist?" "God, no," I said. "Let her finish the set. She's barely halfway through." I ended the call and exhaled slowly, staring out my apartment window. The city looked different that day. Brighter, like it was winking at me. I didn't feel guilty. Not for a second. Because this wasn't revenge done in anger. It was done in intention. Every step, every note, every tray of food was a mirror held up to Ethan's choices. He wanted to recreate a memory. He wanted to steal something sacred and repackage it as new. But you can't recycle romance. Not when the woman you betrayed still owns the blueprints. Camille texted an hour later. "You are officially the queen of poetic justice." I typed back, "I don't want his apology. I want his discomfort." And I was just getting started. Because the only thing worse than being betrayed is being forgotten. And I intended to make sure that neither of them ever forgot me again. They checked out early. Not early, like the polite kind of guest who slips away at dawn to beat the traffic. No, this was the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday, prime poolside mimosa hours. The kind of checkout that screamed, "Something went wrong and we're pretending it didn't." The hotel manager confirmed it by voicemail. "Just letting you know, Miss Bennett, Mr. Harris and his companion have left the property. I believe the suite is now available for your check-in, as you originally requested." I never planned to show up. That wasn't the point. I didn't want the room. I wanted the memory ruined. I wanted Tasha to pack her bags with a sour taste in her mouth, and Ethan to drive home wondering who knew what and how soon the rest of his life might unravel. And from the sound of it, I got what I paid for. I called the front desk and told them to donate any unused food to the kitchen staff, tip everyone generously, and send the harpist flowers. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and turned on some music. It was strange how peaceful it all felt. Not triumphant, exactly. Just balanced. Like I'd finally reset something that had been off-kilter for months. The guilt I expected never came. Because if you're going to light a match, you better know why you struck it. And Ethan? He was dry kindling wrapped in red flags. Later that evening, he texted me, "We need to talk." I stared at the message for a full minute. He didn't ask how I found out. He didn't even apologize. Just that vague, gutless phrase, "We need to talk," like I was the one who owed him a conversation. I didn't reply, but I did post a story on Instagram. Just a photo of a matchbook resting on a hotel bedspread. Caption, "The fire was always mine." The message wasn't for my followers, it was for him. And her. Because they weren't just guilty. They were messy. Ethan had never been good at staying low-key. And Tasha? She was a walking caution sign dressed in neutrals, forever trying to blend in while leaving chaos in her wake. So I knew they'd seen it. He called the next morning, I let it ring out, then blocked the number. Because some doors don't deserve to be opened, not even for closure, especially not for closure. I wasn't supposed to know what happened after they left. But the thing about luxury hotels, they remember faces and names, especially when you tip like I did. 3 days later, I got an email from one of the concierge staff I'd befriended during our original stay, Chelsea. She wasn't just helpful. She was observant. The kind of person who noticed when a woman returned a smile too tightly or when a man checked out with anger clenched in his jaw. Her email was short. "Hi, Claire. Just a quick note. That breakfast order you insisted on? It worked." She cried. He yelled. They left with their luggage unzipped and their dignity trailing behind them. "You didn't hear it from me." I read the message twice. Then I laughed. Not because I enjoy watching people fall apart, but because I know how careful Ethan tried to be. How calculated. He thought he was running the show. Thought he could control the narrative. But you can't outplan someone who already knows your next move. I imagined it all perfectly. Tasha waking up to another round of silver dome trays at 9 a.m., smoked salmon she didn't eat, poached eggs overcooked, another flute of untouched champagne. Her face puffy with sleep, stomach sour from too much rosé and not enough remorse. The harpist's final notes still ringing in her ears, the scent of 10 different dinners lingering in the curtains. I knew Tasha. She wanted perfect. She wanted romance. She wanted our weekend, but with her name on it. And instead, she got chaos, confusion, a man who couldn't lie well enough to hide the cracks forming under his fake charm. And maybe, just maybe, she realized then what I already knew. If he cheats with you, he'll cheat on you. I didn't need her to fall apart, but I did want her to stop smiling like she won something. Because you can't steal a future built on someone else's ruin and expect it to bloom. I texted Camille later that night. Me. Apparently, she cried over Eggs Benedict. Camille. Honestly, relatable. I smiled, not out of cruelty, but from clarity. People assume revenge needs to be loud, explosive. But the best revenge is always domestic, intimate, personal, served on linen napkins and china you once picked out together. I never touched a hair on their heads. I just turned the volume up on the life they stole. And they couldn't handle the noise. It was around midnight when I found myself scrolling. Not doom scrolling, just drifting through old memories like a woman retracing the path of a fire to see where the first spark caught. There we were, Ethan and I, frozen in pixels, smiling too wide, arms always around each other, like two people trying to convince everyone they were fine, including themselves. I stopped at a photo from the original hotel trip. We were on the balcony, sunset behind us, wine glasses half full. He had his chin tilted toward me in that fake candid way, and I was laughing at something I couldn't remember. I stared at the image for a long time. Not because I missed it. Because I didn't recognize the woman in it anymore. She looked eager. Too eager to make it work. Too eager to believe the man beside her loved her more than he loved control. That version of me didn't know how many little betrayals she was already swallowing. And maybe Ethan didn't know yet either. But the cracks were there. In the way he held his phone face down at dinner. In how he never posted me unless I asked. In the excuses that always sounded just plausible enough. I clicked over to Tasha's profile. It was private now. Of course it was. But the real gold wasn't there. It was in the tagged photos. She hadn't scrubbed everything fast enough. One picture still lingered from a mutual friend's account. A rooftop photo, just days before the hotel trip. Ethan's arm slung lazily over her waist. His smile was tighter, guiltier, like someone trying to enjoy stolen food before the alarm goes off. He never smiled like that with me. With me, it was all performance. With her, it was panic. I took a screenshot and saved it. Not because I needed proof. I had plenty. But because one day, if she ever came knocking, if the guilt ever caught up with her, I wanted to be able to show her the moment it all began to fall apart. Camille texted me again, out of nowhere. Still proud of you, by the way. Not just for what you did, but for knowing when to stop. I didn't reply right away. Because that's the thing no one talks about with revenge. It doesn't end with the act. It ends when you decide to put the matchbook away. When you stop rehearsing speeches you'll never give and let the silence speak louder than any confrontation. I closed the Photos app. And for the first time in months, I went to bed without thinking about him. I slept with the windows open. No noise, no weight. Just the sound of a woman who knew exactly what she was worth. I wasn't expecting the voicemail from the hotel. It came on a rainy Thursday, one of those days where the sky just leaks steadily and the air feels like an apology. I'd just come out of a client meeting when the message buzzed into my phone. Hi, Miss Bennett. This is Linda at the front desk. I know this might be outside protocol, but I thought you should know. One of our staff members overheard something you might find interesting. I called back immediately. Linda answered like she'd been waiting. Sorry to be unprofessional, she said, but you were always kind, polite, and let's just say, most people aren't. I thanked her and waited. Well, she continued, the morning after they checked out, he came back. What? Alone, she said. Just walked in, didn't even go up to the room, asked for a printout of the bill, and then stood at the front desk for 20 minutes rereading it. My fingers tightened around the phone. He kept pointing at the charges, room service, the harpist, even the flowers delivered to the suite. Said none of it made sense. Then, get this, he asked who booked the room originally. And? We couldn't say, of course. Policy. But you should have seen his face. He knew, I think he suspected it was you the second the harpist started playing Single Ladies. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Linda laughed too. He kept muttering something about how this is twisted and she wouldn't dare. Honestly, it was the most entertaining shift I've had in months. That image stayed with me all day. Ethan standing in that grand marble lobby, designer duffel bag over one shoulder, clutching the receipt like it held answers. Realizing he'd been outplayed, outclassed, and worst of all, outloved. Because that weekend wasn't romantic. It was haunted. By me. I didn't need to be there physically to leave fingerprints on every moment. The scent of my favorite roses. The playlist he once made for me piped through the in-room speakers. The wine label he gifted me on our second anniversary, now soured by association. He tried to build a lie in a house I helped design. Of course it crumbled. That night, I poured myself a glass of something expensive and turned my phone off. No calls, no texts, no updates. Just me, my couch, and a quiet that finally felt earned. Because while he was standing at the front desk trying to unravel what happened, I was already miles ahead. Not chasing, not explaining, just living. It was never just about Ethan. That's what hit me hardest one morning. Mid-coffee, as I stood barefoot in my kitchen, staring at the quiet hum of the espresso machine. It wasn't just the betrayal or the lies or even the audacity of him booking our old suite for her. It was everything that came before it. Every time I softened so he wouldn't feel small. Every time I bit my tongue to preserve his pride. Every dinner where I paid but let him pretend he had. Every apology I whispered first, even when I wasn't wrong. I'd built the foundation. He burned the house. And now, I wasn't rebuilding, I was upgrading. Ethan's messages had become increasingly desperate, masked behind fake calm. First came the text, "We should clear the air." Then a follow-up email. "I think we both know things got out of hand." Like this was some mutually agreed meltdown instead of a carefully orchestrated reckoning. I deleted each one, but I saved the voicemail. "Claire, look, I get it. I do. I messed up, okay? But this? You've made your point. I thought we were better than this." I played it once. Then again. Then saved it as a file labeled closure. We weren't better than this. I was better than this. Which is why I didn't respond. Because I knew if I gave him space to perform the role of the wounded ex, he'd run with it. He'd tell people I overreacted. That I was vindictive. That he was just confused. Caught between two women. Poor Ethan. But if I said nothing, he had nothing to twist. So I stayed silent. Let the weight of his own guilt drag him down like an anchor tied to a lie. Camille took me to dinner that weekend. Her way of celebrating what she called the classiest character assassination in modern dating. "Do you feel done?" she asked between bites of pasta. I thought about it. "I feel like I finally started choosing myself again," I said. "Good." She lifted her glass. "To choosing yourself? Early, often, and without apology." We clinked glasses, and I realized something. Revenge might have been the spark, but self-respect was the fire that kept me warm. I didn't need to ruin his life. Just the illusion that he ever had control over mine. The call came on a Wednesday, just after noon. I was in the middle of pitching a new campaign to a client when my phone lit up. Unknown number, New York area code. I silenced it without thinking. But when it rang again 5 minutes later, a chill ran through me. After the meeting, I stepped outside and answered. "Claire Bennett?" a clipped voice asked. "Yes." "This is Morgan Keene. I'm the director of talent at Fulton and Bailey." I froze. That was Ethan's company. More specifically, it was his boss's boss. "I hope this isn't a bad time," she continued, her tone polite but firm. "We're conducting a formal internal review regarding an employee, Ethan Harris. Your name came up in relation to a flagged incident involving a hotel charge, which the company initially reimbursed as a business expense." And there it was, the breadcrumb I hadn't even intended to leave, but one I was deeply, deeply glad I had. "I'm happy to answer any questions," I said, my voice even. The call lasted 20 minutes. I told the truth. Everything. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I simply explained what I knew, that Ethan had used company funds to book a romantic weekend with someone who wasn't his girlfriend while on a supposed business trip. That I only discovered it through coincidence. That I had booked the same suite, yes, but only after realizing what he'd done. There was silence on the other end. Then Morgan spoke again, this time lower. "You're not the first." My stomach twisted. We're aware of at least 2 other instances, but this one left a paper trail. She thanked me, said I wouldn't be contacted further unless legally necessary. Then she hung up. I sat there, phone still in hand, staring at the blank screen. Not out of fear, out of relief. Because up until that moment, my revenge had felt like something personal, something intimate, something designed just for me. But now, It had echoed. It had rippled. And Ethan wasn't just going to lose his pride. He might lose everything. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just walked back inside, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. My inbox had 2 new client leads. I responded calmly, professionally, like a woman whose life was expanding just as his was collapsing. Because I hadn't exposed him for attention. I had exposed him because some people need the truth held up to their face like a mirror. And this time, it cracked. He stopped calling. That was the first sign something had shifted. No more passive-aggressive texts. No more vague voicemails pretending we needed to clear the air. Ethan Harris, professional charmer, serial manipulator, had gone radio silent. Which, ironically, told me everything. He knew. Whether it was the audit or Morgan's follow-up or someone in HR finally putting the pieces together, I couldn't be sure. But when a man like Ethan goes quiet, it's never from peace. It's from panic. I didn't feel victorious, just affirmed. He thought I'd play the scorned woman forever. He expected the tearful confrontation, the screaming match, the final act of melodrama that he could twist into, she's crazy. But what I gave him was worse. Nothing. No last word. No closure. No scene he could perform his way out of. Just me, out of reach. I started sleeping better, eating better. My work took off. Probably because I finally stopped carrying around the constant, invisible weight of making excuses for someone else's bad behavior. Camille noticed it too. "You're lighter," she said one afternoon as we walked through a Sunday market. "Like someone cut you loose from a rope you didn't realize was strangling you." It wasn't just him, I admitted. It was who I became around him. Always smaller, always softer, like I had to shrink to fit his version of love. She nodded. Never again. Never again. Not because I was bitter, because I was done. Done with being the one who forgave before the apology, who fixed what someone else broke. Done with accepting crumbs and calling it care. Done with men who mistake tolerance for weakness. I went home that evening and opened my journal, wrote 3 words in bold ink across a fresh page. I chose silence. That silence didn't mean weakness. It meant power. Because there's something unspeakably haunting about a woman who doesn't retaliate, who simply steps back, removes her energy, and lets gravity handle the rest. And gravity? It was working overtime on Ethan Harris. There's something about an empty apartment that feels honest. No furniture to distract you. No photos on the wall pretending everything was once perfect. Just open floors, dust outlines where shelves used to be, and the echo of your own breath as you walk through what used to be yours and his. Ethan's key was still on the hook. The one I let him keep, back when I believed in second chances. I took it, weighed it in my hand, then dropped it into the trash without ceremony. It landed with a soft thud. Fitting. I had given myself the weekend to clear out what was left of him. He didn't live here anymore, not technically, but traces remained. A shaving kit under the sink. A hoodie he never asked for back. That damn coffee mug from Barcelona he always said was the perfect size. I boxed it all up. And with each item I touched, I remembered a lie. The night he told me his phone died when he got home at 3 a.m. The weekend he said he was visiting his brother, but left no photos, no receipts, no story that held together. The birthday he forgot. Mine, not his. And then tried to blame my lack of reminders. I wasn't mourning him. I was mourning the version of myself who believed him. That girl? She was patient, forgiving. She bent so far backward she mistook the ache for love. She thought loyalty meant sticking it out even as she watched herself slowly disappear. But I wasn't her anymore. Not since the hotel. Not since I bought the suite and reminded him and myself that I still had control over the narrative. I opened the last drawer in the nightstand and found something I hadn't expected. The anniversary card I'd written him last year. I'd never given it to him. Inside was one sentence. Here's to making it through everything, together. I tore it in half, then in half again. Because we hadn't made it through everything. We'd made it through nothing. He had been a detour, not a destination. I finished packing the box and labeled it simply, passed, returned to sender. I didn't plan to mail it, but the label helped. It felt official, like a resignation letter to the version of me that tolerated crumbs and called it love. Then I stood in the doorway of my apartment, and let the silence stretch out like a clean sheet. No more lies, no more questions, just space, room to rebuild, room to breathe. I wrote him a letter, not to send, just to write. It started as a joke, really. Camille and I were having wine on my balcony when she said, "You should write the kind of letter you wish you could mail. No filter, no grammar check, just truth." So I did. I sat down at my desk, turned off my phone, and wrote until my fingers ached. Ethan, you were never as good at lying as you thought you were. You flinched every time you told me you loved me. You blinked too long when you said she was just a coworker. You stuttered when you claimed it was a business trip. And yet, I still chose you. Again, and again, and again. Not because I didn't see the cracks, but because I thought love meant sealing them with silence. It doesn't. Love doesn't require disappearing, or patience that borders on martyrdom, or being the one who gives grace while you collect your options. I hope the hotel room was uncomfortable. I hope the heart made her nervous. I hope the breakfast tasted like ash. But more than that, I hope one day you sit across from a woman who loves you, and you flinch. Not because you're lying, but because you'll remember what it felt like to lose someone. Who would have stayed, if only you'd told the truth. I don't want you back. I just want you to know that this time you were seen, really seen. And still I walked away. Claire, I folded the pages, sealed them in an envelope, and slid them into the back of my closet. Not because I planned to send it, but because some truths deserve to exist outside your body, even if only on paper. Camille asked me later, "Do you feel better?" "No," I said, "but I feel finished." There's a difference. Healing isn't always about release. Sometimes it's about recognition, about acknowledging what was broken, who broke it, and why you'll never let it happen again. That letter was a mirror, and for the first time, I didn't look away. The strangest part about moving on is realizing how much of yourself you left behind. I was at the grocery store, of all places, when it hit me. I reached for a brand of pasta Ethan used to like, paused, and realized I hadn't eaten it in months. Not because I stopped liking it, but because I associated it with him. Tiny things like that started showing up everywhere. His favorite podcast popping up in my algorithm. A song we used to play on road trips playing in the background at the coffee shop. Even the stupid scent of his cologne, fresh pine and overcompensation, lingering in the elevator of my building, worn by a stranger. Each moment used to sting. Now, it just reminded me of who I used to be. I used to be the woman who made herself smaller to make him comfortable. The woman who double-texted just to feel seen. The woman who watered down her ambition so he wouldn't feel left behind. I used to be the woman who planned trips based on his schedule, birthdays around his mood, and conversations around his ego. But she's gone now. She left the day I booked that hotel suite in my name. She left the moment I realized I didn't want to be the woman chasing closure. I wanted to be the woman who didn't need it. Camille noticed it before I did. "You're sharper," she said. "Not meaner, just more awake." And I was. I didn't second-guess myself as much anymore. Didn't apologize for asking for what I needed. Didn't default to compromise every time someone raised their voice or eyebrows. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just conversations, the occasional coffee. But it felt different this time. I wasn't performing. I wasn't molding myself into a digestible version of someone else's fantasy. I was Claire. Sharp, funny, strategic, generous, with limits. One guy asked why I was single. I smiled and said, because I stopped mistaking chemistry for character. He laughed, but I wasn't joking. Ethan taught me that. So maybe I should thank him, not for the betrayal, but for the wake-up call. Because I was never the problem. I was just standing too close to someone who was too small to see me clearly. And now, I was standing alone. But not lonely. Not anymore. I thought he might apologize. Not because he was the type to reflect, but because men like Ethan always circle back when the silence lasts too long. When their new reality doesn't feel quite as soft or admiring or accommodating as the one they destroyed. But the apology never came. No text, no call, no I messed up or I miss you, or even the half-hearted hope you're well. And that somehow was the most revealing part of all. He didn't apologize because he couldn't. Because to apologize would mean acknowledging the lie. And Ethan? He survived on denial, on selective memory, on the delusion that everyone was always overreacting and he was just misunderstood. It's funny. When someone wrongs you, you brace yourself for the grand apology. You rehearse what you'll say, what boundaries you'll set, whether or not you'll forgive them. But when the apology never comes, you grieve something quieter. You grieve the version of them that might have been decent. You grieve the fantasy that they were ever capable of real remorse. Camille and I were on a hike one morning, something I never used to do because Ethan hated unstructured cardio, when she asked if I still checked his socials. I shook my head. I used to, I admitted, but now I don't need to know. I already do. What do you mean? I know exactly who he is. I just spent years pretending not to. She nodded and we kept walking. It was freeing, really. Not needing closure. Not needing an apology. Just waking up each day and knowing that my peace wasn't waiting on anyone else's timeline. Ethan may never say he's sorry, but I no longer needed him to, because I apologized to myself. For staying too long. For giving too much. For confusing effort with love and silence with strength. And that apology? It was long overdue. I booked the suite again. Not to make a statement, not for revenge. Just for me. It had been almost a year since the last time I stepped foot in that hotel. The memory of Ethan and Tasha's stolen weekend had long since dulled into background noise. Faint and irrelevant. But I wanted to rewrite the space, to reclaim it completely. This time, I arrived alone. No drama, no plan. Just a small duffel bag, a silk robe, and a bottle of champagne I bought with my own card. No expense reports, no hidden agendas. The same concierge greeted me, her smile warm and knowing. "Welcome back, Miss Bennett. The suite is ready for you." "Good," I said. "I think this time I'll actually enjoy it." The room was just as I remembered it. Floor-to-ceiling windows, crisp linen sheets, soft jazz humming through the speakers. But it felt different now. Lighter, unburdened. The ghosts were gone. I had outlived them. I poured myself a glass of champagne and stood by the window watching the city shift under dusk. People moved below me in miniature, rushing to dates, to dinners, to lives they were still building or breaking. I didn't feel superior. I just felt whole. I ordered room service around 8. My own favorites this time. No performative steaks or overpriced reds. Just truffle fries, a charcuterie board, and a slice of chocolate tart that melted the moment my fork touched it. As I ate, I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who spent her time trying to be loved instead of choosing who to love. The one who thought loyalty meant sticking through betrayal just to say you stayed. I raised my glass. Not to Ethan, not to Tasha, but to her. The girl who had to break in order to wake up. And then I toasted to the woman sitting in that suite now. The one who had learned to leave before losing herself. Later, I took a bath, played the same playlist Ethan once made for me, and let it play all the way through. Song after song of curated affection, now stripped of their weight. They were just notes again, not weapons. And as I drifted to sleep in that same bed where so much had once shattered, I smiled. Not because I had won, but because I no longer needed to. I checked out quietly. No dramatic pause in the lobby. No longing looks back at the marble staircase. Just a signed receipt. A kind thank you to the concierge, and the soft click of my suitcase wheels across polished tile. But before I left the suite, I did one last thing. I ordered room service. Not for myself. For whoever checked in after me. A simple breakfast. Croissants, fruit, 2 cappuccinos. I left a note tucked under the silver dome. To whoever you are, may your stay be honest. May your love be gentle. May your endings make room for better beginnings. See, it wasn't a message to Ethan. It wasn't even about him anymore. It was about closure. The real kind. The kind you don't get from arguments or apologies, but from deciding your story doesn't end with someone else's betrayal. Outside, the city buzzed as if nothing had happened. And maybe, to the world, nothing had. Just a woman leaving a hotel. But to me, it was the last room I'd let someone else define. Camille picked me up at the corner, iced coffee in one hand and her playlist already queued. "You look different," she said as I slid into the passenger seat. "I feel different." Done? Free. We drove without talking for a while, the kind of silence only real friendship can hold without needing to fill. Ethan never reached out again. I didn't hear from Tasha either, and I was fine with that. Some stories don't need sequels, just endings. And mine? It ended not with revenge, but with return. Return to myself, to my boundaries, to my peace, to the kind of woman who doesn't have to be broken in order to be brave. I didn't just leave the suite. I left the version of me who settled for less than the love she gave. And in her place, a woman who no longer waits for room service. She orders exactly what she wants, every time.